Hello everyone, and welcome to the GreenSQL webinar regarding protecting your most sensitive data from cyber attacks. And in this session, we will discuss also the what's going on actually regarding the world of cyber attacks and how exactly it influences us as the companies and how, as an owners actually of the information itself. If you have any question during this session, please feel free to write us down to us, to email us, to contact us, and we'll be more than happy to answer or even have a personal session with you. So before everything, and how come everything changes, and how come security is one step ahead every time when it comes to attackers, and how come there's so much need for new security solution as time passes? We currently live in a changing environment. Everything is changing surrounding us. If just 10 years ago, or even less, you would have talked with an enterprise company or even with a small and medium company, and you would have told them that everything is going to move to some sort of a hosting solution, what we call today a cloud. I guess most of those organizations wouldn't have believed that they would have trust their most sensitive information, from emails to their CRM application, to their ERP application, and also to their HR information, that it will be stored somewhere in an untrusted and unactually owned computer. Everything is changing in the IT world. Not only the cloud as a concept is being adopted by each and every IT model, but today everything is going to mobility. Each and every element. I believe that within 2 years, 85% of the people that browse the web, that access the internet, will be from mobile devices, from smartphones, from tablets, and new devices that are just starting to appear this year, like your mobile watch, like the glasses by Google. So we are going to a full mobility world. And in this world, in a never-ending and and changing scenarios and changing technologies, there's a new measures of security that have to be applied. 5 years ago, if I would have talked with someone about viruses running in their mobile phone, most of the people would have laughed about it. And today, one of the main targets are mobile users. And this actually changes everything. Because many times when people hear the word cyber attack or cyber criminals or cyber warfare, many times people don't really understand what exactly it means. What is the destination? How exactly can we understand what is the risk? What type of a threat are we handling here? Is there even a vulnerability that is part of the situation? And what is the consequence? What exactly are the results of those cyber attacks? How come when organizations that pay a lot of money to hardware providers, to software providers, always keep security at the most of the time as the lowest part of their investment as part of their IT infrastructure? And just to make it clear, security is the level that can make or break a company. On the other hand, applications are very mature those days. Networking infrastructure and also networking hardware are very mature those days. On the other hand, security vulnerabilities, we are just starting to see reasonable solutions available in the market. So trying to figure out and to see the entire threat scope and to see exactly what people and companies are talking about when we are mentioning threat, how and where exactly the threat level is being part of everything. And this is something very interesting, because when we're seeing the threat actors, who are exactly in charge and who are the people who initiate a level of attack, a level of threat creation, and what exactly are they targeting? This is a very interesting concept, because just to give you a glimpse of information, in 2011, more than 60% of all the leaked information from databases, and actually not only databases, all leaked information, was initiated and performed by hacktivism group like Anonymous, like LulzSec, like others. The 2011 was a huge year for information exposure. We're talking more than 1 billion records have been exposed, and more than 60% out of that has been done by hacktivists. So trying to understand and realize what exactly is the threat and who are the threat actors, and trying to think what exactly foreign intelligence is interested in. What countries and which type of cyber attacks are they interested in? To attack country infrastructure, to attack financial organization, and what exactly are their goals? When we're talking about hacktivists, their goal is about exposing information. Again, cyber criminals and terror acts. Terror acts is something completely different that I'm not going to touch during this session, but cyber criminals, when we're talking about criminal elements, it's about stealing the information, stealing your most sensitive information, from your customer information to your HR information, your proprietary information that most of the time is installed inside your infrastructure. When we're talking about cyber, we need to understand the threat vectors. And when I'm talking about threat vectors, today it's everything. As I mentioned before, one of the biggest change in our organization is the bring your own device. If just 2 years ago it was just you're allowed to bring your smartphone to work because your company could not afford to pay for an iPhone for you, today you bring your tablet. Tablet eventually is a computer. And with this computer, you can do everything. So when let's say a cyber criminal team decides to attack your organization in order to steal information, and they know that you have spent a lot of money in protecting your premises, which means you bought the best firewall, you bought the best web application firewall, you have acquired the best intrusion prevention system, and you also got advanced malware detection system. They will do everything in their power to find the weakest link. And many times the weakest link can be the smartphone. It can be the tablet that you also serve to your personal information from, because it's your own device. And when they will target your smartphone, and at the second that you get to work, your smartphone will connect through the wireless or will connect to the network just in order to sync with files or just to open some PDFs internally, then the attack will continue in order to get inside your infrastructure. So what is the focus of cyber attacks? I think it's divided to two main categories. First of all, the people itself. The human. Each and every one of us and each and every employee in a company is part of the company. I know it's making sense, but think about it just one step forward. When a person is part of your company, each and every day interacts with multiple systems, with application systems, with networking solutions. If he works at the IT division, so he actually interacts with a lot of authentication mechanisms that are part of your entire infrastructure. If we're talking about a person that works in your CRM and is just a CRM representative, he just answers the phone to answer customers, so he can see each and every sensitive information as part of your customers list. You have the access to cause and change, let's say, even behavioral answer of their customers. And the second focus are the systems. We are living in a digital world, and today everything is digital. Once a human starts working today, he could never interact with any application system that is part of the company. So the focus of cyber attacks are people and systems. The combination between the two is what causing most of the time the problem. So many times when people hear about cyber attacks, they only think about militaries or governments attacking other militaries and attacking maybe some other governments. Many times people talk about cyber, they heard the word SCADA, which is actually control system. But this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because I'm sure that many of you, or most of you, heard about Stuxnet, for example, which was a known malware that have reached and attacked Iran's SCADA systems. The target by, according to news, and actually President Obama have admitted that the U.S. have managed this project, apparently according to his formal information with Israel, to attack some sort of Iran government systems. But cyber targets are much, much more available for everyone. And if with cyber attacks that we hear in the news about causing problems to governments and attacking, let's say, internal infrastructure of governments, this is not the general attacks of cyber. People are causing a lot of, let's say, huge news alerts. Most of cyber attacks are not even being noticed. The most sophisticated attacks and the goal of any professional attacker that it's in his direction not to cause mayhem, but it's only to get to the information and sometimes to manipulate it. But we have to understand that the target of a cyber attack is each and every one of us, each and every account that we have on any service, and each and every element that is part of our company and part of our, actually all of our systems. And this is something that many times we don't really understand, we don't really take into consideration. And how come the database becomes the main target? Because even if I get to a company infrastructure, even if I get internally to your infrastructure, what exactly is interesting for me? Yes, I can steal the credentials, but what exactly will I do with the credentials, with the username and passwords? My main target and my main goal is to get internally to your information. What exactly should I do with this information? The simplest answer will be whatever I'm interested in. If I'm interested in changing the information that's stored inside your database, to manipulate it, to delete it, or even to take you down. If by encrypting the information inside your database so you won't be able to do anything with that until maybe you'll pay me some money in order to give you a way to open the encryption, or sometimes it's also about the option to just monitor any changes of your information. Cyber attacks are just the point of entrance. The main question and the main important issue is what exactly will be done with this attack? What exactly will be performed with this information? The database is the company is a sentence that we say frequently, but what do exactly we mean with the sentence the database is the company? Each and every important part of your information, the important and sensitive information, is stored inside of the database. This is the final frontier of your company. And the entire goal of most, not all, but most cyber attacks is to get to this information. And many times we don't take into consideration what are exactly the threats. Any infrastructure, we need to start thinking who accesses to our information, to our databases. If information is the new currency, databases are the safes that stores this information. And when we are thinking about only threats that coming from the internet or from outsourced user, we need to think again. Because with today sophisticated cyber attacks, when they're taking our browser and they are taking the information that we use on a daily basis, if my goal is to get to a very important database or an attacker goal, then he will hack into the DBA computer. He will make sure that he will receive a link that will cause an exploitation to his PC. So I will be getting into your database from an internal DBA PC. I will probably steal his credentials. I will probably use the connection from the same IP address. And the only valuable information that you will see inside your current database logs is that someone is accessing the database. Where is he accessing it from? From the DBA computer. Which credential does he use? The DBA username and password. This information means nothing if I'll try to compare it to an attack. But if a security system will be able to tell me, listen, something doesn't make sense. How come there are so many views? How come such a big amount of information is being viewed right now? Something is strange. How come at 11 p.m., where the user is not logged in, there are still connections to the database? And this comes to help you to understand what exactly an auditing system and how can you audit each and every change. It's not getting any better when it comes to information leakage and breaches, because you can see by yourself that it doesn't matter how many information security services and companies and products the high-end enterprise companies are still acquiring on a weekly basis, new security products, new security solutions, new security architectures, and endless amount of consultant services. The biggest companies, and these are just a few examples, by the way, that you can see in front of you, are still suffering from the worst type of information breach. They're losing their entire sensitive information to attackers. If we're talking about Evernote just 2 months ago, or Living Social, 50 million users and users' information. Just to get the numbers, 50 million. And those are the companies that we know of. Any news alert that you hear, it's almost on a daily basis, different companies, different government organizations have been breached. Different information type and sensitive information have been leaked out. And this is not just that someone stole someone's letter from his mailbox downstairs and he just released this information. We are talking about 50 million Living Social's members' information and also encrypted password that today it's extremely easy to get those passwords from those encryption. So this is something that we have to keep in mind, that understanding and analyzing exactly what is the problem, we need to understand what's called the final frontier of information, and this is eventually the database. The database holds all our sensitive information, and basically the type of connection that connects to the database is divided to two main types of connection. Automated connections, which means endless amount of application that does a lot of important tasks with our information, is connected to the database. And also user-based connection. Doesn't matter if it's my DBA team, my QA team, my development team, my IT operational team, and so on, that have the option to access the information stored in my database. When trying and making sure that I'm thinking about security and thinking about what exactly should be trusted and what not, the line is getting thinner and thinner. Because when I see a DBA action to my database and is trying to retrieve too much information, I have to keep an open eye to check if it's really the DBA. Yes, the connection is using the DBA credentials. He's connecting to the database from the DBA computer. But maybe it's lunchtime and my DBA is even not in the office. And still, someone is sensing and touching sensitive information. It's a lot of work, but the question, is there a system, and there is, that will bring me a correct alert when something like this happens? And this brings me to GreenSQL. GreenSQL, when we developed GreenSQL, the goal of GreenSQL was to sit between the application and the database server. Because GreenSQL is a software base, but it still works as a reverse proxy. It means that any application, and when I'm saying application, it can be your web server, it can be your development studio, it can be your SharePoint, it can be your CRM application, or any type of application that connects to the database will first of all connect through GreenSQL. And because GreenSQL is a reverse proxy, it means that we tried our best to make sure that the entire attackability surface of your database entity, many times when people thinking about database server, they only think about the database application. It doesn't matter if I'm using an Oracle database or Microsoft SQL or MySQL. Eventually, these are just applications. And the application, as smart as they are running on an operating system. When they are running on an operating system, I have to understand the attackability surface of this operating system as well. Because many times, it's much easier to attack the operating system in order to gain control of my information stored inside the database. Because GreenSQL is a software-based reverse proxy solution, once you have GreenSQL up and running, no one should have access. More than that, no one should even know what's the real IP address of the database server, which means that the application are going only through GreenSQL. So the database can be actually installed in a DMZ environment as part of your firewall. No one should even take into consideration to exposing the real entity of your database server. And what exactly we offer as part of GreenSQL? We got 4 packages, but I will talk about the main 3. We're talking about database security and what exactly can we control and which policy can we enforce. We provide database activity monitoring, what many times is referred as auditing solution, in order for you to truly see what's happening, truly understand, and truly monitor the changes inside your database. And we also provide dynamic data masking so you can mask your sensitive information. We worked extremely hard with GreenSQL in order to make it very easy to work with and extremely easy to maintain and install GreenSQL. GreenSQL, by the way, is a software-based solution that you can download online and install on any common server platform, on a Windows server or on a Linux server, and you can install it within less than a minute and have the configuration up and running within less than an hour. And the thing that you see in front of you is a security policy. So we have actually 3 types of rule types in the security management. You can create a database firewall rule, you can create an intrusion prevention or detection rule, you can enforce up to a table level access policy, which means I can now easily enforce from which IP address, using which username database, and which application I'm allowing access to which table inside my database. And before that, we talked about the option that if someone will try to attack and will succeed my DBA computer, my DBA workstation, I have the option to control who exactly can view sensitive information inside my database. And this brings us to separation of duties and how important it is to implement separation of duties. The DBA and the DBA consultant should have a full control of the database and should have the option to manage my entire database. But they should never have the option to view, retrieve, or even change sensitive information. And if they do, I would like to be alerted on that right away. For me, as a security manager, as a DBA, as someone that takes control of the information provided by my company and owned by my company, I have the need to enforce level of access to the database. And each and every log that is generated by the system, I would like to view it. And in GreenSQL, you can within seconds to see who exactly did what inside the database. I can see the regular pattern, I can see the affected database name, I can see the database type, I can see from which IP address he connected using which application, which library have been used, so I can have more information in order to investigate. Is this action is legit? Is this action is really performed by the user who's supposed to execute this command? And this brings us to the database activity monitoring in order for us to truly monitor what exactly is happening inside my database. I would like to have the option to have 2 types of activity monitoring. The first one, and this is the activity monitoring type, I can choose administrative types, which means I trust my DBA, but I would like to make sure that whatever administrative access that have been executed to the database is truly done by my DBA that I trust. Is any administrative command that have been initiated and executed inside the database in any hour is something that is complying with the regulation I have to comply with? Is it something that I would like to monitor? This tiny checkbox of advanced activity monitoring not only providing me the option to see who did what and when, but also the information after that. And for me to have the option just to set my most sensitive 20 columns, I have very sensitive information in my 20 columns, which contains my financial information, my customer information, and anytime someone tries to view, modify, or delete information from those sensitive columns, I would like to be alerted right away. And by checking this tiny checkbox of advanced activity monitoring, if someone tries to change the information or actually changes it, I would like to have the option to view what exactly was there before. So I can see what was the current information and what was the previous information. So setting up advanced activity monitoring, I have the option to see a before and after, a very clear view of a before and after of every change, administrative change, or any change to information as part of my sensitive columns. Database activity monitoring is one of the biggest selling points when it comes to database security because of regulations, because the need to monitor. But many times people don't take into consideration that even though their authentication is correct, even though their accounting is correct, even though they trust their DBA, how can they truly know that the DBA is truly as executed a command? One of our customers have seen that one of his DBA workstation have started viewing a lot of information during work times. And when I'm saying that they noticed that there is a lot of connection to their database using the DBA credentials, also in working hours and also outside of the working frame hours, they had the option and they needed to make sure, and eventually after analyzing and talking with the DBA, he said that he even wasn't right next to his workstation and he wasn't connected from home. No information was deleted and no information was actually changed, but someone have retrieved most of the sensitive information that is stored inside the database. And this is something that as an organization we need to start taking control of, monitoring any type of command, even though it was executed by our DBA. Even though someone tried to view this information from the DBA's workstation, we need to make sure that it actually happened that way. And this brings me directly to dynamic data masking. How can I mask sensitive information from people that are not allowed to see this sensitive information? How am I able to make sure that the information that is available for my customers, for my applications, for my outsource, for my interconnect inside the company, that this information will not be available to people who are not allowed to see this information? One of the most important part in dynamic data masking is that there is no chance that the information will ever leave the database, and I will explain how come. Dynamic data masking makes the system, that makes actually the database mask the information by itself. And how exactly it works: when the application generates a query and the query have reached GreenSQL, and we detected that according to the policy that you've configured, that you are trying to retrieve sensitive information from sensitive columns, and this is up to a column level configuration. What GreenSQL does, GreenSQL actually injects a transformation function inside of the query before it reaches the database. So it doesn't matter how exactly the attackers will work inside of the network, the database will mask the information, and the only information that will leave the database will be already masked. Which means that even if you have a man-in-the-middle attack inside the network, even if someone have injected a sniffer somewhere inside the network, they will only see masked information when the information leaves the database. Additional factor that is also extremely important for customers: in order to implement dynamic data masking, you don't have to change anything in your applications, in your database, in your administrative commands, in anything. Just configure your sensitive columns and choose the masking behavior that you'd like to implement. And you can run the configuration between up to a user, an application name, an IP address, and the destination can be up to a column level. The most basic configuration regarding masking, which is extremely important, and this is also part of separation of duties. If I know the IP addresses of the DBAs, and also I know the IP addresses of the external web servers, I have the option within minutes to implement a working dynamic data masking, and whatever happens, and it doesn't matter how actually cyber attacks are working and bypassing your internal security mechanisms, if someone from those external resources tries to see sensitive information, he bypassed authentication and he bypassed everything, the information will be masked. And this is a very important factor that many times we don't take into consideration. So GreenSQL sits before your entire application level and your databases. It doesn't matter, by the way, currently GreenSQL supports Microsoft SQL, we support MySQL, we support MariaDB, and also we support PostgreSQL. So you have the option to enforce all the different policies that we just talked about before it reaches the database. So this was the session regarding GreenSQL. I would like to thank you again for your time. And if you have any question, or if you're interested also in a personal session with one of our engineers and also talking about database security in your infrastructure, please feel free to drop us a line and we'll be more than happy to have a private session with each and every one of you. Thank you again and have a great day. See you in our next session. Have a great day.